So, can you be a Christian and a racist at the same time?
It's time for The Line of Fire with your host, biblical scholar and cultural commentator, Dr. Michael Brown. Your voice for moral sanity and spiritual clarity. Call 866-34-TRUTH to get on The Line of Fire. And now, here's your host, Dr. Michael Brown.
Hey, friends, you can ignore that intro that you just heard about can you be a Christian and racist. That was for the Monday show. What happened was my flight was delayed coming in from Orlando, Florida. I did not think I was going to be able to make it for our Thoroughly Jewish Thursday broadcast live. Got in, literally walked in a minute and a half ago, literally. Somehow we were able to get here without breaking the law. And we didn't have a chance to get the tease for the beginning of the show, so the wrong one was played. This is Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. We are live. Michael Brown, here's the number to call, 866-348-7884. 866-34-TRUTH is the number to call. Friends, I really wanted to be able to do this show live today. I'm so glad that we'll have this time together. And Tuesday, I was at the Israeli embassy by the invitation of Joel Rosenberg. Maybe about 30 plus evangelical leaders were gathered there to watch the IDF footage compiled from October 7th, from the massacre. This has been shown in private settings for months now, overwhelming to see. And something I didn't want to see, but I felt a sacred obligation to do it on behalf of my people, and thought if people actually suffered these things, at the least I should be willing to see them with my own eyes and be a witness. And with increasing world pressure on Israel to stop its war against Hamas, or an extended ceasefire, with so much world opinion against Israel, with Israel being painted as the evil player in the midst of the war with Hamas, this footage is still important to see. But what I was not expecting was the scene when I got up to the Israeli embassy. So I'll tell you about the footage in a moment, but those watching, let's put up a couple of the pictures so you can get a feel of what things are like. You walk up, and it's like a war zone. There's stuff posted everywhere all around. It's loud and noisy. Israel bombs babies. Israel uses starvation as a weapon of war. There are people speaking through loudspeakers and sirens, loud sirens. I don't know how this is legal. It's what's called Embassy Row, where you've got embassy after embassy there in Washington, D.C., but I don't know how this is legal. And these blaring sirens, you could hear them inside as a representative for the Israeli government was talking to us about the footage, which he regretfully has seen 16 times now in different private showings. They haven't released it to the general public in full because of privacy issues and things like that, and families involved. And in all, you see the bodies, the corpses, the mutilated people, about 130-something corpses you'll see, and see the deaths of those involved, which is about 1/10 of those killed that day. I'll tell you more about the footage in a moment. But when you're inside, you can hear the blaring of the sirens outside. And this has been the reality for the last 4 weeks since an American military man set himself on fire, killed himself ultimately, protesting the war. He did that there in D.C., and since then they've had this 24/7 barrage. So what I'm going to do is play a few clips for you, and guys, let's play it loud. Let's play it as it is. So just a warning, this is going to be very loud and obnoxious, but I'm giving some commentary as well. Let's play clip number 1. This is the scene outside the Israeli embassy. I'm about to go in and see footage from October 7th. Wow. Yeah, so, I pulled up like, what is going on? Some protests. So they got somebody pounding the drums. They've got the sirens. They've got people accusing Israel of atrocities. So I motioned to one, want to talk. So, of course, they don't pay any attention at all. then go in, then see the footage, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. And then this is the next clip as I'm actually leaving the building. Let's look, let's listen. Okay, I'm about to leave the Israeli embassy here in D.C. This is the scene outside, 24/7. And however loud it sounds now, I assure you it was much, much louder in person. All right? So I go walking down the street. I went up to a couple of people. Hey, you want to talk? Can I talk to you? So they wouldn't even acknowledge me. So one more clip, just so you can hear it. You can feel it. This has been 24/7. You're in the embassy. You hear this. You cannot get away from it on the street. It is unbelievably blaring. This is what you have to get past just to get into the embassy. Everywhere else you go, everything's quiet. All the other embassies, quiet, nothing going on. But here, the protest. Another clip. Let's listen. I tried to talk with a few of the folks, but they have no desire to talk. Probably just paid to be out here, brainwashed like others. May God help them. All right. And then Israel, the embassy, has some Israeli music playing. It's hard to hear with the blare of the sirens, but it was Israel broadcasting out. So this last clip, I know it's obnoxious to hear this, but I want you to feel the reality of what's happening there. Let's listen. These are the sounds. Israeli embassy playing Hebrew music and the protesters. All right, so you get a feel of the intensity of things. And there was a sense in which hearing the protests outside and hearing the sirens outside was almost fitting as we were watching the footage. So it turns out that there are parts of this that I've seen that others have played and still images of some of the carnage. And I've read so many articles about the footage and people's experience that it was as intense as you can imagine. I mean, seeing videos of the bodies of little children in their colorful pajamas laying in their beds, but just the bloody messes, and women laying on the floor dead, and you could see bleeding where they were shot in the crotch. And I mean, it becomes overwhelming, image after image after image. And here's at the music festival, there's a corpse, and you could see the woman's been raped, and there's a mother on the phone. The first responders are talking, and is it her? Is it their daughter? Does she have tattoos? Can you see? No, we don't think it's her. I mean, just the agony of everything going on. So I was prepared for that, and it's as horrific as you could expect. The footage was gathered together from CCTV footage. So you have the Hamas terrorists coming in from, you may have Israeli soldiers, female soldiers in barracks, and they were caught off guard, and they're huddled. And they're videoing with their phones and what's happening. And then next thing you see, and it's either the Hamas terrorist phone or they're using one of the victims' cell phones or first responders, and their body cams, the body cams of the Hamas people. And now those women that you just saw cowering and talking a minute ago, they're just bloody corpses, bloody corpses. So, I mean, the horrors, as you could expect. But what struck me was the smiling faces of the Hamas terrorists. That if you just saw these young men smiling, you think, oh, what nice young men. And the constant Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, praising Allah, praising God for the killing of the Jews, for the killing of these dogs. And, you know, one of the commanders is saying, hey, chop off the heads and kick them around and make sure you take pictures, make sure you take pictures. And then you see that here's a head lying there, or you see a soldier pulled out of a tank. dead soldier, Israeli soldier. And then one of the terrorists takes his knife out, starts shouting Allahu Akbar. Right that you see him cut the head off. And remember, you're showing this on social media. When there was world outrage about things, Hamas went into denial. No, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. No, that's wrong, and this is fake footage. But they were posting the stuff themselves. They were holding the head, Allahu Akbar, after it's cut off. I mean, the barbarism in the name of Allah, which obviously does not represent your average Muslim, but it does represent radical Islam, and it does represent the ideology of Hamas, where the Jews are not human, they're dogs, and the sons of apes and pigs, as Islamic tradition would say. And then the glee in doing it, the one guy calling his parents, and there's the audio you can hear in Arabic, and it's being translated. And he's, mother, father, I killed 10 Jews with my bare hands. I killed 10 Jews. I killed 10 Jews with my bare hands. Kill, kill, kill. Are you safe? Yes, I killed with my bare hands. Allahu Akbar, Allahu. And then as they show the footage coming back into Gaza City, and you've got a dead Israeli soldier or a corpse of a woman from the music festival, and they're dragging him on the street, and everyone on the streets, running down the streets, men, women, children, holding their cell phones, celebrating. The citizens, the quote, innocent civilians, celebrating and shouting out Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, as they're showing this on their cell phones, victory over the evil Israelis. And at the end, just looking at some of the burned corpses, burned beyond recognition, and I thought immediately of my people killed by the millions in the concentration camps. And I thought of them then being burned in the crematoria, their bodies being burned, and I thought this is what it would look like on the way to being turned into ashes. And here, Israel is trying to say, this really happened. And outside, the protesters accusing Israel of genocide and denying that the atrocities really took place. This is the battle, friends. This is the demonic battle. On which side do you stand? On which side do you stand?
This is Michael Ellison, founder of Trivita Wellness. I want to introduce our Trivita Alfred Libby original patented sublingual B12, B6, and folate formula. I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Alfred Libby, a pioneer in vitamin research. I also had the opportunity to obtain the patented formula, and the rest is history, with over 50 million tablets being taken by our Trivita members through the years. The amazing testimonies of mental clarity, mood enhancement, and more energy have been thrilling to me as a founder of Trivita Wellness. Not only is it an amazing B12 product, but it is loaded with the essential B6 vitamin. I call it the workhorse vitamin. It is vital for strong immune function and every body system. Here's what the National Center for Biotechnology Information says, and I quote, "It plays a key role and is crucial to immune function. It is a molecule necessary for the proper functioning of the entire body system, and its role cannot be overestimated." Harvard Medical School of Health says folate is the natural form of vitamin B9, and it plays a key role in breaking down homocysteine, an amino acid that can exert harmful effects on the body when it is present in high amounts. I encourage you today to try the Trivita Libby B12, B6, and folate formula.
To order Alfred Libby's B12 for yourself, call 1-800-771-5584 or online at Trivita.com. Order today and use promo code BROWN25 to receive 25% off your order. As a new customer, 100% of your order proceeds from your first order will go to support the Line of Fire radio broadcast. 1-800-771-5584 or online at trivita.com.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on The Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome, friends, to The Line of Fire. Michael Brown on Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. Because the studio thought I was not going to make it back for the live show, you didn't hear the Thoroughly Jewish music that we play on Thoroughly Jewish Thursday, but it is me. It is Thursday. We are live. 866-348-7884. I'll be going to the phones shortly. As long as it's Jewish-related, I'm happy to take your call. From day one of the atrocities taking place and the barbaric slaughter carried out by Hamas terrorists, on day one, I said that we needed to pray for the Palestinians as well, that they would be experiencing great hardship because as the monstrous nature of the events unfolded, it was clear that Israel had to fight back and Israel had to eliminate Hamas. Remember, Hamas has said, we will do this over and over. We'll repeat October 7th over and over until there is no more Israel. That's it. There's not negotiating with or working out a deal. No, that is their mindset. And you see how much of the population shares in that mindset. So as Israel wages war against Hamas, you know and knew that there would be many civilian casualties among the Palestinians, no matter how carefully Israel engaged its warfare. So that was a given. And I've said it again and again, the death of a Palestinian baby is just as grievous as the death of an Israeli baby. I can tell you this, that the Israeli army, unless you have some demented sicko among them, the Israeli army is not rejoicing as Palestinian children are killed and walking down the streets, gunning down little ones, shouting, Baruch Hashem, praise the Lord. Or you may have a sicko, radical religious fanatic that might do that, but that is not the army. That is a sicko. There are sickos everywhere. There are sickos in every religion. There are sickos in every society. There are perverse people. They exist everywhere. In the church, in the synagogue, in Islam, in the secular society, among atheists, among Buddhists, Hindus, they exist. But what you saw with Hamas, that was the norm. That was everywhere you turned. That was one after another after another. That was pointing out, that was celebrating, looking at the corpses and all those dead. Here and there, they may have let a child go, depending on the individual terrorists. Others gunning down everyone they could. And you see they're coming into a house and they're shooting. You see the CCTV. Here's some woman cowering, trying to be. And next thing, there's her bloody corpse and there's Hamas guy carrying her out as a trophy. So Israel has had no choice but to seek to eradicate Hamas. And if Israel had had the help of other nations, if Egypt had allowed Palestinian refugees across its border and Israel was just fighting the Hamas terrorists, the war could have ended much, much more quickly. There could have been many other things done. The world could have put pressure on Hamas to release all terrorists. Instead, the world puts pressure on Israel to engage in a ceasefire. And, terrorists should be released too. But Israel, you got to stop. So the tables get totally turned. Everything gets completely twisted and turned upside down. It's not to justify everything Israel has done. It's not to say that Israel has conducted itself perfectly. It is to say that Israel's intent, Israel's goal, is not to slaughter civilians. And you have not heard reports of Israeli soldiers raping Palestinian women. You've not heard reports of that, let alone raping them to death and then mutilating their bodies and playing with parts of their bodies like they were soccer balls. You have not heard that because that has not happened. And if something like that happened, there would be outrage all over Israel. Instead, when these things happen, there was celebration among the haters of Israel in Gaza and around the world, and in the West Bank as well. I don't know what the solution is. We've talked about this many a time, but I see no alternative for Israel other than to exterminate Hamas, to wipe out their leadership and to wipe out their terrorists until Hamas does not exist, and then to do its very best to work with those who want peace among the Palestinians. Maybe it's young people, maybe it's not the older leaders, and to find a way to live securely and happily side by side, to say you can have a better life. You can have freedom. You don't have to have boycotts or you don't have to have blockades stopping you from employment and coming over into Israel. You can have all the educational opportunities that you want. You can have your freedoms if you live with us side by side in peace. How that comes about, I don't know, but I don't see an alternative. In light of what was done, the magnitude of it, the horror of it, and the joyful glee of these terrorists, many of them have never killed someone before. You'd have to imagine that with so many people involved and civilians getting involved too, some of the civilians are the ones who kidnapped hostages. Many of the hostages have been held in homes and things like that. So many of the people working side by side with the terrorists, you imagine some they must have been killing for the first time. And yet, rather than shock and trauma, there's glee, there's joy, there's celebration. That's the face of evil. That's the face of Satan. And I saw it in the face of Hamas. May God save them from their sins. May God deliver them from evil. May they make a full surrender, and may Israel be protected. All right, we will go to the phones now. We'll start with Baruch in Utah. Welcome to the Line of Fire.
Anton LaVey founded the Church of Satan while living in Tel Aviv. He was Jewish according to Halakha, and according to Dr. Michael Brown, he was also chosen. Now, I want to ask you a question, Dr. Brown.
Well, hang on. Why was that? I don't understand your point. Are you saying that there are Jews who do bad things?
No, I'm getting to my question. My question's right now. So Anton LaVey, who founded the Church of Satan, he could go to Israel and become a citizen. Now, I'm asking this question as if Yeshua is sitting right next to you.
Nope. Sorry, you called a few days ago with a different name, and hey, you can fool us once, but not twice. Hey, Baruch, learn to be honest, okay? Don't change names and things like that and then call in some duplicitous way. Not on a day like today when we're talking with such seriousness, all right? Better to, if you have an issue, take it up with the Lord, but don't play silly games, okay? We had to cut you off last week after nonsense. Now you call with a different name, and when I'm pouring my heart out about these issues, that's not just dumb, that's an insult. And really, it'd be good if you don't call for quite a while until you get your act together, all right? Then if you want to have a civil conversation, we can do it. Last week you called, accused me of all kinds of non-existent nonsense. Now you call with a sham name today. Different location too. Yeah, that's... Why? Come on, listen. There's so many serious things that we can talk about. There's so many life and death issues we can talk about. There's so many serious conversations we need to have. We don't need nonsense like this. But let me also say this. This is what happens when you're on the front lines standing for Israel. You get nonsense like this. You get people who have an agenda, and it comes with the territory. It's just a reminder. And I want to encourage all of you who pray for Israel, who stand for Israel, pray for the Palestinians as well. They are victims of their own system. They're victims of their own ideology. Many have been brainwashed from their earliest days, and then they'll see the worst side of Israel and get the worst perspective on Israel, and that will only deepen their hatred. So it's a vicious, ugly cycle. But those of you who pray for Israel and stand with Israel, just know you're standing against the devil. Just know that. Just remember, when you stand with Israel and the Lord, for God's purposes for Israel, all right? When you stand with the Lord and stand with his purposes for Israel, you're standing against the devil. You're standing against the devil, and therefore all kinds of junk comes your way. I mean, idiotic calls like that, that's the least of it. But just remember, there's spiritual resistance and spiritual opposition, but we need you on the front lines, standing tall, fighting the good fight. All right, we'll be right back on the other side of the break. Hey friends, Michael Brown here. My delight to serve as your voice for moral sanity and spiritual clarity. We are living in such urgent times today, friends, that all of us are in the line of fire. There's a target on your back. There's a target on my back. If you simply seek to live by biblical values or just conservative moral values, you could be canceled. You could be cast out. You could be put down. You could be silenced. I'm here to say, friends, that I am not about to be silenced, and I don't believe you are either. It is time for us to stand up. It is time for us to say enough is enough. It is time for us to push back in Jesus' name. Not fighting the way the world fights. No, overcoming evil with good, overcoming hatred with love, overcoming the flesh with the power of the Spirit, overcoming lies with truth. And that's what we're here to do on the Line of Fire broadcast. And friends, it's not just a broadcast, it is a movement of people around the world. God's people standing up saying enough is enough and saying, Lord, here we are, send us, use us. I want to urge you today to join our support team because we are on the front lines together. And we are literally touching people around the world, in America, in the nations, in Israel. And together with your help, we're going to amplify this voice and spread this movement around the globe. So I encourage you, go right now to thelineoffire.org, thelineoffire.org. Click Donate Monthly Support. Thelineoffire.org, click Donate Monthly Support. When you do, you become a torchbearer. We immediately send you 2 great life-changing books. We immediately give you access to many classes I've taught. Others have to pay to take those. You get them for free. Exclusive video, audio content, a new audio message every month, an insider prayer newsletter, 15% discount on our online bookstore, so much more. Join our support team today. Go to thelineoffire.org. Donate monthly support.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on The Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome, friends, to The Line of Fire. Michael Brown, thanks for joining us. Number to call with Jewish-related questions, 866-348-7884. I'm going right back to the phones in a moment, but I want to make a heartfelt appeal. We are on the front lines pushing back against the horrors of anti-Semitism. We're doing that. We're doing that day and night with our materials, with books like Our Hands Are Stained with Blood and Christian Anti-Semitism. I was just speaking to a couple hundred ministry students and evangelists in Orlando, Florida yesterday, and spoke in this morning and then flew right home. But speaking to them yesterday and going through church history and actually played the clip where I'm interacting with Chris Roseborough about Martin Luther. And these students had never heard the Luther quotes. They knew nothing about it. They were devastated. They were shocked by this. And then the call to stand with Israel and pray for Israel's salvation. We're on the front lines reaching out to the Jewish people with the good news of the Messiah. My 5 volumes on answering Jewish objections to Jesus, the many debates with rabbis, our Real Messiah website, ongoing materials we're getting out in Hebrew. And so we're on the front lines 24/7, reaching out to the lost sheep of the house of Israel and resisting the rising tide of anti-Semitism. We're doing both, and we can do them even more loudly, even more clearly, even more powerfully with your help and with your support. So if you recognize the importance of standing with Israel today, as well as reaching the Jewish people with the good news of the Messiah, join our support team today. You will be richly blessed as you do, knowing that you have treasure in heaven, the treasure of Jewish lives being impacted and being saved. We'll get to rejoice in that forever and ever. And not only that, you'll also have access to so much material that we make available to classes and other materials that are absolutely free that others would have to pay for to take classes. And you'll be on the front lines together with us. I believe that's the richest reward you can get. Go to thelineoffire.org, thelineoffire.org. Click Donate Monthly Support, $1 or more per day. Makes you a torchbearer. I know for some that's a stretch. For others that's easy. If you can give more, do it. But let's join together and let's work even harder to get the good news to the Jewish people and to push back against the rising tide of anti-Semitism. All right, we go over to Jaco in Brazil. Welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hello, Dr. Brown.
Hello, thank you for holding. Yes, sir.
Please have patience with me. I made it some time. I'm very nervous. My name is Thiago. That's James in Portuguese.
Okay.
And my Hebrew name is Jacob.
Yes.
I'm calling from Brazil.
Yes.
First, I would like to thank you. I can say how much our work has blessed and helped me. Forgive me. I'm used to read but not speak in English, so I'm very rusty and actually reading a note that I wrote before.
Oh, you're doing great. You're
Dr.
doing
Brown.
great, sir. Go ahead.
Dr. Brown, please help me. What I have to ask is not related to salvation or any kind of obligation to a healthy spiritual life. I'm a gay man, and I was baptized with the Holy Spirit when I was 15 years old, and in every way became complete with and in the Messiah, Mashiach. I grew up hearing some relatives saying that we were Jewish, but didn't pay much attention to it because some people in church said that Jews were under a curse. But everything changed when I found Jesus the Jew personally. Dr. Brown, my family is very much assimilated. The majority now is Pentecostal Christians, and the others are agnostics. Almost all of them are unaware of our history or don't really care, but I do. I know that the core of my identity is in the Messiah, but I simply can't put that aside. Along the time, more and more I became attracted to the history and culture of the Jewish people, clearly as a secondary thing, not as the foundation of my intimacy with the Spirit.
Yes.
And I know that you have a different perspective, but I believe as the first fruits of Zion ministry, that Jews can honor the tradition where it is not against the teachings of our Lord. And in my intimacy with Him, I feel more and more comfortable that way. I started to study my family's history. I discovered how my maternal grandma had numerous Jewish customs on her childhood, that her grandmother was supposedly a Jewish woman who married the son of former black slaves, and how those customs vanished when my grandmother's dad was killed and her mother lost her brothers. Discovered that the supposedly Polish family of my father, whose no one had information, have their names attached to a Jewish family that died at the Shoah. It seems that the first ancestor of his family here in Brazil was somehow brought in a wave of traffic of Jewish women, and maybe she was already pregnant, and that his line is among their line. I talked to a rabbi, he himself a Masorti, and an Anusim, and he recognized me as a Jew. We became friends, even with the differences in our faiths. We debated, studied culture and traditions, and he allowed me in his community, accepting me as a Jewish Christian. The Orthodox heard my history and believed in me at the few times we talked. But I am Anusim and a Bnei Ashkenazi, and that by itself is already complicated. The fact that in my faith I'm a solid Christian leaves me alone regarding their help. However, all that I said to you is the oral tradition of my family, and I have just some documents to back me up. I'm still searching for more. And recently you said that refers to Judaism believing in Jesus, Yeshua, actually didn't convert. I know that's not my case, but I fear that maybe something is wrong in my family history and I'm not halachically Jewish. I want to be intellectually honest, and I love the Jewish people so much.
Yeah, so let me give you my input, sir. Yeah, let me give you my input. Thank you for sharing all that, and I love your spirit. So you've emphasized very clearly that this is not a matter of salvation. It's not a matter of your intimacy in the Spirit. It's just a matter of understanding your heritage, your background, your history. Just like someone that learns that they're adopted wants to find out, well, who are my biological parents? Or someone who is the child of an anonymous sperm donor. It's like, well, who was that person? So this makes sense. And you know, of course, throughout Latin America, there are so many Anasim or Marrano background, different things, that Jews who converted or were hidden and then ultimately got absorbed in the Christian world, but some secretly preserved their faith, others years later or generations later realize it. So I would say a few things. Number one, sir, be sure that Yeshua always remains central, not Jewishness, not secondary or tertiary identity, but your primary identity being in him. That's the first and most important thing that you must maintain. Secondly, I don't think you have to prove to anyone that you are legally, halakhically Jewish. I don't think you have to prove that. If you are convinced through family history and records and through what God's been doing in your own heart that there is a lineal connection, there is a blood connection on some level, then rejoice in that. That gives you more of a sense of solidarity with the people of Israel, with our Jewish people, for your own prayer. And I have no issue with First Fruits of Zion teaching that you can keep certain traditions as long as they're not contrary to the spirit or letter of the New Testament. That's between you and God. There's no right and wrong in that regard, as long as those things don't usurp intimacy with Yeshua. They need to enhance, not usurp or detract from. But I would not worry about proving you're halakhically Jewish. I certainly would not go through any type of conversion to satisfy the Orthodox or the drop of blood to mimic circumcision and things like that. I would see no need for that. And you're even then trying to prove something you don't need to prove. If it's part of your history and you've discovered it in your own heart and then family records and oral traditions have preserved that, well, praise God. There are people like you by the millions scattered all around the world that have lost touch with their Jewish roots and little by little are restored to them. So I would rejoice in that. I would take the feeling of solidarity very seriously and then keep Yeshua, Jesus, central in all things and just ask God for the meaning of this in your life as a witness and solidarity with the Jewish people and prayer for Israel. This way, as part of the church, you can carry that burden more deeply. That would be my counsel to you. Okay, my brother?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
You are very, very welcome, and thank you so much for your gracious spirit. I appreciate it. 866-34-TRUTH. So 100% we understand that as far as salvation, being Jewish or Gentile doesn't save you, doesn't damn you. It's our sin that damns us. It's Jesus, Yeshua, who saves us. And we all come through the same door. We all come through the same gate. There's salvation only in him. And our primary identity is being in him. Our secondary identity is being male or female. Our tertiary identity would be being Jew or Gentile. But our primary identity is in him. And that's what I so appreciate with Diego Yaakov saying. By the way, do you know why James, the book of James, is called Santiago in Spanish and close to that in Portuguese? Do you know why? It's San, so Saint, Diego being a corruption of Jacob, Yaakov. So that's how you get Santiago in Spanish. It actually comes from Saint, San Diego, Diego being a corruption of Yaakov, Jacob, which comes into our English Bibles as James, but is really Jacob. All right, we'll be getting right back to the phones on the other side of the break. I take a call now, except for the fact that we're going to run out of time. 866-348-7884. If you're not getting the Frontline newsletter, we were so excited with the one we sent out in March with the testimony of a 96-year-old Jewish man coming to faith. When you sign up today, you'll get the March newsletter that we already sent out. We'll send that right out to you, as well as put you on our welcome tour, tell you about my testimony from LSD to PhD and the 3 R's of our ministry: revival in the church, gospel-based moral and cultural revolution in society, and the redemption of Israel. Go to thelineoffire.org, thelineoffire.org. Right on the homepage, hit subscribe, and we will get the Frontline newsletter out to you and get you in our welcome tour. And hopefully, we can be a blessing to you through all the resources we have to minister to you absolutely freely. We can do it freely because of our faithful supporters. So all of our supporters, all of our torchbearers listening right now, thank you. You're helping us bless many.
I'm Paul Burnett, a board-certified doctor of holistic health. Over the years, I have helped countless people increase and maintain their natural energy production with Alfred Libby's slow-dissolve Super B12, sold only by Trivita. I have never met anyone deficient in caffeine or sugar, but I have met many people deficient in energy-supporting vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is one of the 8 B vitamins, and it is an essential nutrient, meaning the body cannot make B12 on its own. You see, unlike other oral B12 supplements, Alfred Libby's Slow Dissolve Super B12 is fast-acting because the formula is scientifically developed to dissolve under the tongue, bypassing the digestive process, making it immediately available for use in the body. Alfred Libby's Slow Dissolve Super B12 is also formulated with other natural energy-supporting ingredients, such as folate, ginseng root, and other natural ingredients. Not only are the ingredients beneficial for energy, but they also support healthy cognition, mood, nerve function, and natural hemoglobin production. You deserve to live with greater energy and mental clarity. And now, like millions of others, you can with Alfred Libby's Slow Dissolve Super B12, sold only by your wellness partner, Trivita.
To order Alfred Libby's B12 for yourself, call 1-800-771-5584 or online at Trivita.com. Order today and use promo code BROWN25 to receive 25.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on The Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Thanks, friends, for joining us on The Line of Fire. Thanks to our co-sponsor, Trivita, for your generosity towards us. Those interested in great wellness products can call 800-771-5584. Ask whatever questions you want. They'd love to talk with you. If you go online, you can go to Trivita.com, and you can use the code BROWN25. All right, let's go to Alberto in Savannah, Georgia. Welcome to The Line of Fire.
Yes, good afternoon, Dr. Michael Brown. Talking about the Jewish people, I mean, they're wonderful people because they blessed the earth with 400 Nobel Peace Prizes, all the inventions and discoveries they made. So, hats to them. But what do you think about the Muslims, the scholars? I know the Michael Youssef, he says that he's been reaching thousands of Muslims are coming to Christ now. But you say still a lot of the people are still being, deceived by their imams or their teachers to hate the Jews. But what about the Muslim scholars? Are they in favor of that or they're against that?
Yeah, Alberto. Yeah, it says in Romans 11:29 about Israel that the gifts and calling of God are irrevocable. So there are certain gifts that God gave to the Jewish people because of our calling. And when we do things well, it's amazing. And when we do things badly, it's terrible. So we have this kind of DNA to be world changers for better or for worse, but so appreciative of all the good that's come from our people as well. Islam is varied. You have more moderate Muslims, more extreme Muslims. Among the more extreme Muslims, Israel, Jewish people, they're the enemy. The great scholars, and you have learned Muslim scholars who are extremists, and they despise the Jewish people. They want to see Israel wiped off the map. They would see Jews worldwide as enemies. More moderate Muslims would have a less extreme view. Some Middle Eastern Muslims are happy to work together with Israel, especially work together with Israel against Iran. They would divide more Sunni versus Shiite. And then you have Islamic scholars who are not as religious, and they would be more willing to partner side by side with Jews and Christians and say, these are the three great monotheistic faiths. Let's work together. So, Alberto, it's not so much a question of what the scholars say, but what type of Islam it is. In other words, you can be brilliant and scholarly and full of hate and believe wrong causes. There were brilliant Nazi scholars. There were brilliant Christians who were super learned or professing Christians who were also Nazis. So you have it across the board. that you can be brilliant and educated and still full of hatred and bias. So the more moderate forms of Islam, they would absolutely denounce the atrocities against Israel and say, let's work together for common peace and common good. But the ones that are making the loudest noise and have the most influence are the radicals. Hey, thank you for your call. I appreciate it.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
But when people accuse the ones being radical, but I heard that's what the Quran really teaches to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So here's the thing. It depends on how you interpret it. In other words, there are absolutely verses in the Quran that say kill the enemy. There are other verses that say you live in peace, you don't coerce in religion. And our argument would be that the verses saying live in peace are the earlier verses, and the verses that carry weight are the ones saying kill the enemy, etc. So there are Islamic scholars, or there are Christian scholars of Islam who would say a right reading of the Quran leads to radical Islam. A right reading of the Quran, a correct reading of the Quran and the Hadith, the Islamic traditions attributed to Muhammad, that these would lead to violence, terrorism, etc. And that ISIS, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas, that they are all true to the spirit of Islam and the spirit of the Quran. There are many Christian apologists who would say that. Others would say, no, there are other streams that have a different viewpoint, that have a peaceful viewpoint, and those are also legitimate. There is an interesting discussion between Robert Spencer and James White. If you'll search on our YouTube channel, The Line of Fire, search for Spencer and White, you'll see a dialogue they had there. And Robert Spencer argued that real Islam is radical Islam, just what you're saying, sir. Real Islam is violent Islam. And James was saying that there are different streams that are both legitimate. All right. Thank you, sir, for the call. We go to Orlando, Florida, from whence I just flew moments ago. Alex, welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, Dr. Brown. I wish I would have known you were in town. That would have been cool to actually meet you. But just thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I have a question on Ezekiel 45:22.
Okay.
The anti-missionary rabbis would say this is absolutely proof text, that this is not, that Yeshua can't be the Messiah because this prince is offering a sin for himself. And obviously we believe that Jesus is sinless. But obviously I don't believe this is necessarily talking about Jesus. But I just wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. First thing, where does it say it's the Messiah? It doesn't. Never calls him the king, never calls him the Messiah. He doesn't have any messianic role or function. He just seems to be a Davidic leader. So there's no reference to him being Messiah, Messianic, or the king. And there's plenty of vocabulary that could have been used. This Melech would be simple enough as king, or just refer to him as David. Earlier in Ezekiel, like in the 37th chapter, when Ezekiel is speaking of the coming Messiah, he refers to him as David. So none of that is done. So I don't think it's the Messiah for a split second. That's number one. Number two, I would ask that counter-missionary rabbi, how do you explain Ezekiel 40 through 48? Because you say that the Torah is forever, and yet the dimensions of this new temple here are different than the Torah dimensions for the tabernacle and the temple. So how do you explain that? It's a quandary for traditional Jews as well. There's a Jewish tradition that claims that one rabbi spent, hundreds of nights studying and reconciling, making the dimensions work, but all of his research is lost. So it's a problem. The Ezekiel 40 through 48 presents problems for everybody. If it's a future text with a future temple, Christians would say, well, why are there any sacrifices? And one answer would be, well, the sacrifices were never to do what the cross did. The sacrifices were always for outward cleansing and ritual cleansing, as Hebrews 9 would indicate. Others would say the sacrifices point back to the cross. Others would say it's just metaphorical language for worship. It presents problems for traditional Jews. And in context, it was supposed to happen when the Jews returned from exile 2,500 years ago, and it never happened. When you read it, God's talking about Ezekiel, about what his role will be in that temple. And from that, there are rabbis that deduce that this proves the resurrection of the dead, that Ezekiel will be alive in the future. But in context, it was supposed to happen back then. So it's an interesting text, but it's one that we can't make a big doctrinal argument about because it presents problems for everybody. But the short answer is there's not a stitch of evidence, not a syllable that says that this prince is the Messiah, is the Messianic king, the Messianic son of David, and therefore what the prince does or doesn't do is inconsequential. All right. Well, hope that helps. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And let's go over to, all right, Jolene in Orlando. Welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hi, Dr. Brown. Thank you so much
You
for
bet.
taking my call.
You bet.
Yeah, just had a question. As a believer, I'm finding that a lot of my people who are close to me and some friends that are also believers are jumping on this very pro-Palestinian movement. And it really disturbs me because these are like believers. They're not,
Yep.
people that know the Lord and know the Bible. And I guess for me, I feel just kind of lost at how to, I didn't know, like, as far as like resources or like, what is the best way to, like, obviously I want to combat it, but sometimes I feel a little lost because of just the narrative is just so,
Yeah.
it's just gotten so screwed up. And it, like I said, it's kind of disturbing to see that happen. And obviously I do love your heart. We obviously have a heart for Palestinian people as well, but
Yes.
like in these times, it's like you have to be, I feel like you have to be for Israel. That's what the Lord,
So I'm just going to jump in just so I can answer before we're off the air. Okay. So
sure.
I'm going to go real quick. Number one, there's a video on our YouTube channel. So the Line of Fire YouTube channel is Israel an Evil Occupier. I did it some years back. You can tell I was heavy then, the video about 11 years ago. Is Israel an evil occupier? You want to go through that. Okay. It goes through the history. Is Israel an evil occupier? That's one thing. Second thing, a 5-minute video, is God a Zionist? Also on our website and YouTube channel. Is God a Zionist? Third thing, my book, Our Hands Are Stained with Blood, which goes through anti-Semitism in church history and lies about Israel in the media today, and God's purposes for Israel. It refutes replacement theology. Our Hands Are Stained with Blood, that book, all right? And then the other thing is a book by Ephraim Karsh, Karsh, called Palestine Betrayed. Palestine Betrayed, where he goes through the history with actual firsthand documents and shows how the leaders of Israel were trying to work with the Arab neighbors with the establishment of Israel in 1947-48, and how consistently the Palestinian people, the Arab population there, have been betrayed by their leaders who made the wrong decision to their detriment. Remember, there could have been a two-state solution in 1937 when the Arabs were offered overwhelming amount of territory and the Jews a small territory. They refused. Then in 1947, they were offered a little less territory, two-state solution with Israel. They refused. And then with the Oslo Accords, all kinds of ways bending over backwards to them. Instead, they launch an intifada, Yasser Arafat. So there have been numerous opportunities historically, but those resources, is Israel an Evil Occupier, the video lecture at a university in Florida, and then Is God a Zionist, the book, Our Hands Are Stained with Blood, which will go through history and help your friends to understand what's happened through church history. And then finally, Ephraim Karsh, Palestine Betrayed. Hey, thank you for the call. And when you go through those resources, let us know how we could be of help in the future. And with that, friends, we are out of time. I don't hear our fade out music, but we are definitely out of time. May the blessing and smile of the Lord be upon you.